All right, so welcome back to part 2. We're talking about emotional intelligence and the components of it. So right now we're going to talk about self-perception, and we're going to go into self-regard. Feel free to take out your notes and pick up from where we last left off. Self-regard is basically just respecting yourself, while at the same time understanding and accepting your strengths and weaknesses. Many times people associate this with feelings of inner strength and having self-confidence. You have regard for yourself and your ability levels. You're also aware of your weaknesses and strengths. Self-actualization is a willingness to improve yourself, like persistently, to engage in the intentional pursuit of personally relevant and meaningful objectives, things that lead to rich and enjoyable experiences for yourself. Whereas emotional self-awareness, that's just recognizing and understanding your own emotions and having the ability to differentiate between the subtleties in your emotions as far as understanding the cause of them versus the impact that they have on your thoughts and your actions about yourself and others. And so I'm going to say that one again. Not just recognizing that you're feeling a particular way or experiencing a certain emotion, but really being able to slow down and see, okay, am I aware of what caused these emotions or this emotion? And am I equally aware of the impact this emotion is having on my thoughts and the way I'm acting or behaving towards myself or towards others? That's emotional self-awareness. Now, when we talk about, what's our next one? Self-expression. Self-expression, we talk about emotional expression, where you're openly expressing your feelings verbally and non-verbally. Assertiveness, not aggressiveness, involves being able to communicate those feelings, your beliefs, what makes you you. Being able to share your thoughts openly, not hiding them or being ashamed of them or embarrassed. Defending your personal rights, advocating for yourself, your values. Everybody should have core values. You got to be operating around something in a way that is socially acceptable, non-offensive, and in a non-destructive manner. That's assertiveness as part of self-expression. So if my self-expression, it's almost like pursuit of happiness, there's a crossing point where if the way I want to express myself is in a way that offends intentionally others, there may be something that I may believe is true, that's my values, but if it's something that's going to openly hurt, hinder, or offend someone else intentionally in that moment, and I'm trying to be destructive, that's not what assertiveness is. That's just being aggressive. That's just being unacceptable. That's like me going to a child's birthday party, and because I may, let's say, use profanity or something else that would be considered highly inappropriate at a child's party, I recognize where I am and I'm able to communicate. Let's say, for example, if I do have a need while I'm at this child's party, maybe I need my inhaler or there's something, or I need, something else, that's one thing. But being appropriate to where I am and respectful of the fact that there are children present. And so that there's some things I may be thinking or feeling that I am not going to say, that I am not going to comment on, and that I am not going to do, because I recognize the world is just not me. I need to be assertive enough to communicate what's important to me at the right times in the right way. It's a way to do everything. And independence, the ability to be self-directed and free from emotional dependency. Can I get an amen? You are setting yourself up when you are emotionally dependent on somebody else. They not happy, you not happy. They mad, you mad. You had a great day, did great on an exam, excited, got hired for a job. You share that information and they're Debbie Downer. And they're telling you, well, now you're gonna have less time for me. Or just because you passed that one, that was an easy class anyway. And you're just like, are you serious? You need to be emotionally free from being attached to another person to the point where their mood dominates your mood, where they're grooming you to be a sidekick and you can't have your own independent happiness, joy, excitement outside of them. Mm-mm. Next component that we're going to look at today is interpersonal. Interpersonal. So when we look at interpersonal relationships, this is talking about skills that you develop to help you make and maintain mutually, you'll see that word a lot, satisfying relationships that are wrapped in trust and compassion. And we know trust is earned over time and it's lost in a second. That's why we have to be mindful that our feelings are not guiding our decisions, because we will mess up a good relationship and not be able to maintain it, because we forget it's not just getting the relationship, it's maintaining the relationship at a satisfactory place for both parties. And that's trust and compassion. So if you have a mentoring relationship, you're respectful of your mentor, their time, their experiences, what have you, and vice versa. But in this particular peer mentoring or peer coaching, you need to be very trustworthy. That's why we go through FERPA training. That's why we go through boundaries and confidentiality. You know, our model of things go up and not out. That's why we have boundaries between, they're not called your friends. This is your mentor. This is the student that you're working with and supporting. And that's why we have these trainings, that you are to have compassion and empathy, but to make sure it's a mutually beneficial relationship that remains professional and safe, so that your mentee knows what to expect and can count on that. So when we talk about empathy, that's recognizing, understanding, and really appreciating how other people feel. Think about that word, appreciate. I appreciate that you feel that way, because you're owning your feelings. You recognize that feeling. You're not denying it. You're not suppressing it. Yeah, that's what you're going through. Now, are we counselors or therapists? No, we are not. Are we going to try to serve that role? No, we are not. And we learned that in the previous training. But we do have the ability to listen reflectively and actively. We do have the ability to be able to articulate our understanding of another person's perspective and seek clarity, so that we're not making assumptions and that we're validating them and not giving our own advice on the situation, which we are never to really do. That we're behaving in a way that respects others' feelings. So if they're going through an extremely difficult time and their energy level is low, and you're coming in, well, hey, things happen. So on a happier note, no, calm yourself. Bring yourself to where they are. Looking at them, paying attention, your body language should show that you are in that moment with them, listening. Because sometimes the best thing we can do is just listening. The last one, social responsibility. And we encourage the students you mentor to really kind of mentor them in this thing, because sometimes we can be so wrapped up in ourselves that we forget to care about or contribute to society, different social groups. Maybe they're in an RSO, a registered student organization. That's why we have the volunteer requirement, because we want them to be concerned about the welfare of others, people who don't look like them, people who aren't their age, people who aren't from where they came from. Having that social responsibility to say, you know what, I am socially conscious of things that are going around me. I may not fully understand all of them. I may not agree with everything, but I can still show concern for the community that I'm currently living in, whether it be my campus community, whether it be their dorm community, whether it be the city they're in, or the field work that they've been placed in. Developing that social responsibility that we all do have a part to play. All right, our next component involves problem solving, reality testing, and controlling your impulses. And what is this? Decision making. We all want to solve problems, but as we talk about emotional intelligence, this is problem solving that includes the ability to understand how your emotions impact your decision making. And I know you're like, okay, Chandra, you can say that like 5 times, but how often do we make these rash decisions? And because we're in our feelings, basically. And yes, I could have said that more collegial, but I'm gonna just, you be in your feelings. You mad, so now you're giving everybody the silent treatment, rolling your eyes, not saying nothing. What you actively chose to stop talking to people. Now you stop talking to everybody because 2 people frustrated you over a particular situation. That could have been a big misconception that you were offended by, that they could have had a lack of information about. So really slow down, because if we're going to make good decisions, they can't be based off of just what we're feeling in that moment and a lack of information and a lack of perspective taking. Reality testing. This one even sounds scary, but it's just the capacity for you to remain objective, to see things as they really are and not how your emotions are making you perceive that everything's not a threat. Everything's not going to last forever. Everything that goes wrong is not going to destroy your entire life or day. So being able to pull back, sit back, calm yourself, re-regulate, and say, okay, in this situation, what's real versus what may be my personal bias, what may be something that's causing me not to see this as clearly as it is. Something as simple as saying, what happened, what actually happened, what happened first, what happened next, what happened last, using transition words, just to understand what happened when you're talking to your students versus them only looking at how they felt about it. And we've been talking about feelings a lot, and that's important to acknowledge and validate. Equally important is to be able to clearly see what happened, not just the narrative they wrote about what happened based on what they were feeling at the time. Impulse control. This is where you have the ability to resist or delay that impulse, that drive, that temptation to act. And I'm glad they included the word temptation in this curriculum, because you're going to be tempted to do some stuff, first of all, you know is not beneficial for you in general. And you kind of talk yourself out of why you shouldn't avoid it, and you just go for it. Slow down and really think about, okay, if I do this, what could that look like? What is most likely realistically going to occur? If I decide, okay, if I withdraw from this class, how does that impact me? Before I make the decision, I need to know pros, cons, and I need to consult someone or encourage your mentee. They need to consult someone beside themselves, especially if they're making a decision about something that they don't know anything about or have never had to make before. And that doesn't just go for our mentees, that goes for us too. Now, and being flexible and being able to have a high tolerance for stress, because you're going to have stress, and being optimistic, what component does that fall under? Stress management. So to be flexible, you got to adapt, you got to bounce, you got to weave, you got to be able to say, okay, here are my emotions, here are my thoughts, here are my behaviors, but I'm in an unfamiliar situation. I didn't predict this, I didn't plan this, and I need to be flexible. I need to be able to adapt to these circumstances. It may be ideas you have to adapt to. Having the flexibility for some students to recognize in high school, your teachers may have done 80% of the work, setting things up, teaching the lessons, making sure you have multiple activities, following you to make sure you turned it in, providing you with all these different ways to be able to come after school or before school or what have you. You are, and then you had to do maybe 20% that you could probably do right before class or maybe an hour the night before. It didn't require a lot. Well, now you have to be flexible in your thinking and reconsider. You're in college now. You have to flip those numbers. You're going to go to class. You may get 20% of the information. 80% of that may fall on you. And that's because you're supposed to spend more time studying than you spend in class. You are supposed to take that time to summarize your notes, to reflect on the notes you took, to read the chapters, to answer questions, to work in a study group, to go over vocabulary, to look at diagrams. So it flips. And being flexible means you're able to adapt to when circumstances or things change, even if it's just the way you think. Stress tolerance. Now, this involves you being able to cope with stressful or difficult situations, and not just cope with them, but believe that you actually can influence that situation in a positive way. So in stress tolerance, you are very much empowered. It is not a pity party. It is where you realize I am under stress. This is a difficult situation. And as I'm coping with this, I believe I have the power. I have the resources that I can manage, that I can use to influence the situation in the most positive way that it could come out. Once again, going back to that glass half full, that I can do this. All is not lost. Last, we talked about optimism, and that's an indicator of your positive attitude, your outlook in life. This is where you remain hopeful, resilient, despite of your setbacks. I've heard pastors say a setback is just a setup for a comeback. A setback is just a setup for a comeback. All is not lost. Okay, you may have not done well on an exam or what have you. Okay, it was a setback. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Look at what happened. Learn from that situation and make your next move your best move. Don't dwell in it and stress out. Keep moving, be resilient. All right, so I think our last one for today is I'm honestly going to move a little through these slides. These are the slides we would have went through if we were together as a group in the actual training. Keep in mind, these videos are just for participants who are able to make the training, but would still like some of the information. You can find additional information on the live binder and links to the actual training. As we wrap up, some techniques for increasing your emotional intelligence. You are gratitude. Set a goal, begin, just to be grateful every day, not to set a goal and set a goal. Your goal literally is to be grateful. This can be something as simple as before you go to bed, writing down 3 things that you're grateful for. Research shows it'll actually help you sleep at night. You'll learn to look for the good. Feedback. This involves others in your improvement plan. You are not an island. You cannot do everything by yourself. Ask people that you trust. Be open to hearing how you're even perceived by other people. Because we talk about that. People with high emotional intelligence reflect and receive constructive criticism or helpful feedback. And that's kind of part of being vulnerable, because you have to allow yourself to be seen. It takes courage to be imperfect and allow others to see your imperfections. We're all broken and battered in some way. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Being able to look at your strengths, your weaknesses, your past, being able to see what you overcame gives you fuel in many cases to believe in the confidence that you can continue to overcome. It also lets people see your honesty, and then it helps them relate to you more because they see your authentic self and not the mask that you're putting on to please. Listen to yourself. This is your self-talk, because we all talk to ourselves. And sometimes that voice is me. Sometimes that voice is critical and tells you what you can't do, what we're not good at. We just need to give up. I'm not good at math. I don't like numbers. I'll never do good at math. We didn't do math like this in high school. I ain't going to be able to make it. I'm just not going to take no math at this shit. Okay, time out. You can count your money, you can tell time, you can calculate distance. Those are mathematical concepts. Okay, you are not math ignorant. Do you need possible tutoring? Probably. Do you need to put 2 and 3 hours in beyond what you do in class? Most likely. Do you need to get that Khan Academy videos going and buddy up with somebody? Potentially. But to sit there and dog yourself is to produce what? Nothing. So we need to be tuned into our thoughts and feelings and being careful that our self-talk is not dogging us out and putting us in a corner where we're unproductive. Best friend. Learn to be your own best friend. And what I mean by that is when that voice starts going off on you, you need to be the one to be like, shut that critical voice down. Substitute it by what you can refer to as your best friend. Or pretend like, okay, if somebody was really my best friend or a trusted coach, what would they say to me? While I'm sitting here being negative myself, if I was to say this stuff out loud and my best friend heard me talking about myself, or someone who really cares about me, what would they say instead? And let that voice substitute. Because somebody who really cares about you is not going to let you just dog yourself. At some point, they're going to be like, you know what, I hear what you're saying. And that is difficult what you're going through. I believe in you. You've passed classes similar to this before. This is a rough time right now. But there's resources available. You're not by yourself. You're smart enough to do this. It's that other voice that you have to sometimes be your own best friend and not your worst enemy. And last, practice. I mean, anything worth doing is worth practicing. Anything worth doing will take time. So emotional intelligence, like we learned at the very beginning, there's going to be times when it's up, times when it's down, depending on what you're going through and what your students are going through. So take time to refine your skills. Take time to be like, okay, and you guys are going to take an emotional intelligence assessment, but to be able to look at that assessment and say, okay, wow, when it comes to managing my emotions, you know, I'm pretty good about dealing with my emotions. However, when it comes to being empathetic to others, I have really low tolerance. You know, I just want people to get over it and keep moving because that's what I do. The role of being a coach is not to have your mentor do what you do, because who said what you're doing is effective for you or anybody else? Your role is to be there to support them, to provide them with resources, to let them know they're not alone, and to constantly remind them of all the different opportunities that are available to them, and to help them defeat that voice that kicks their own butt, and help them to be a friend to themselves and to be able to navigate different networks on campus and get the best they can out of the year, but not by being emotionally dependent on you as the coach, but by growing strong in their own emotional intelligence. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you for watching.